Code of Jewish Law, Shulchan Aruch, Yoredea, chapter 201, good morning, dealing with the immersion, the Tvilah. And they said in the code to achieve purification in a ritual bath or a spring, an individual must completely submerge his body all at once. And basically the measure of the water in which this can be accomplished is the minimum is 1 cubit by 1 cubit, excuse me, by 3 cubits of water. So here we are, 12 lines from the bottom of page 31, and a quote from the Mishnah. 5 טבילות ו10 קידושים טובל כהן גדול ומקדש בו ביום. It was taught in the Mishnah that the 5 immersion in the water and 10 sanctifications, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, immerses and sanctified his hands and feet. So now we elaborate in the Braita on this Mishnah. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught us, 5 טבילות ו10 קידושים טובל בהם כהן גדול ומקדש בו ביום. All this form of immersion, a ritual immersion, the Kohen Gadol does on the Day of Atonement. וכולם בקודש בבית הפרווה. So Tosfot tells us here that for sure the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies, the courtyard carries a sanctification, but the roof, the top of the roof doesn't have that level of sanctification. However, the Tosfot said that the mikveh, the ritual bath that the Kohen Gadol used in order to immerse himself, to sanctify himself for that day, carries a kedusha, sanctification, even it was at the top of the roof of Beit HaParva. So that's like Tosfot said that the roof, gag shave lekarka azara, the roof is equal to the floor of the yard, and you guys can see it at the back of the book with all these graphic illustrations. Okay. חוץ מהראשונה, חוץ מהראשונה שהייתה בחול, על גבי שער המים ובצד לשכתו הייתה. All of that, it's in we excluded the first immersion that was in a place that doesn't have the kedusha, the sanctity of the courtyard. It was in the water gate. So it's one of those places. The water gate was in the south of the courtyard. So as we said, the mikveh wasn't carry kedusha, but tzad lishkato hayta, it was in the side of the chamber of the high priest, so he can go and duck himself in a mikveh.
Rabbi, if you just to make a point, on the back of the Schottenstein, or the front of the Schottenstein Talmud, there's a diagram of the of the second Beit HaMikdash, and it's pretty clear where the mikvehot are, so you can see how the one on top of the water gate is outside, and the one on top of the parva chamber is inside the.
Yes, and it's located in south of the courtyard.
That's correct. South of the, both of them are south of the courtyard, but the one on top of the gate is, sort of just outside, as the one on top of the parva chamber is just inside. So,
beautiful.
I can here.
Very nice.
I'll just hold it up for a second.
Want you to hold it? Okay.
Yeah.
Gilbert will help you.
So that's right. Yeah. So that's inside. There is the on top of the parva chamber, and there's the one on top of the water gate, the little blue ones. So. Well, you can see blue there and there, parva chamber and water gate. So, okay.
Very nice. So, Amar Abaye Shma Mina, we derive from this Braita. En Eitam, it was a spring, a river, the place that the water come out. It was the courtyard. Amat Hamayim, a place that the water flow. And it ends in the mikveh that was at the top of that place. So Rashi explained that was what we call in a modern day Ma'ayan Mei Naftoach. It's, if you want to go to the old city, you see it. and it's based on what it's written in Yehoshua, in the book of Joshua, chapter 15. We believe that spring river was the highest in Eretz Israel, and it was the one who flowed at the border between the property belonged to the tribe of Benjamin to the tribe of the Yehuda. And Rashi explains that that's the place that the Gemarrah called Ein Eitam. Gavoa mikarka ha'azara. In the Koren Gemarrah, you have a description and picture, right?
So they're saying these two mikvehot were filled by that river?
Aqueduct.
So that's river that filled up. It's a pure spring water.
Now, did it flow naturally up to there, or that would be a miracle if it, because I mean the walls would have been above the top of the actual.
Let me read it to you from the background of Rabbi Steinsaltz. He said that Ein Eitam is identified with Ethan spring alongside the third of Solomon's pools, approximately 3 kilometers southwest of Bethlehem. The long, you have one, aqueduct, and the low one flows from this and another spring for roughly, 20 kilometers, winding between the mountains and passing through tunnels until it reached the Temple Mount. The present day Itam Spring is located at an altitude of 760 meters above sea level, approximately 25 meters higher than the Temple Mount.
Oh, okay, I see.
This aqueduct was destroyed at the time of the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, the temple, but it was later restored and carried water to Yerushalayim over the course of many generations. And the lower one was the Hashmonaim, while the upper one was built later during the Roman era. And you have here the map. Very nice. Anyway, Amar Abaye, Shma Mina En Eitam, Gavoa Mikarka Azara 23 amot, is higher from the floor of the courtyard with 23 cubit. The Tnan, we learn in the Mishnah, Tractate Midot, chapter 2, Kol HaPtachim Shayu Sham, all the entrance that was in Beit HaMikdash, Gofhan 20 amot, Rachban 10 amot, Chutz mi'ulam. So they have 20 by 10, excluding the one that have the ulam, because they said, because that's the entrance to the sanctuary, and it have double, was a 40 by 20. And he said, the source, Vetanya, it's written in Torah in Vayikra in Leviticus 15, 16, they said, Verachatz b'mayim et kol besaro, he washed his body, entire flesh, b'mayim b'mei mikveh, that he needs to use the mikveh, the ritual bath, the mayim, in Hebrew it said nikvu me'atzmam, that become the natural spring water, not the mayim she'uvim, not mayim that you need to pull out, because it's with ba mayim, not be mayim, which means that we derive as a special water. Kol besaro, entire body, mayim shekol gufo ole bahen, water that the entire body immersed there. Vechamahen, what's the measure of the water that average person cover his body? Amal ama berum 3 amot v'sharu chachamim mikveh 40 seah. Beautiful. So they said the river, that's basically you see it in Gemarrah in Zvachim. Ma'ayan Gavoa, the highest river is 20 ama more, 20 cubit more. But the Gemarrah said in Zvachim, the Beit HaMikdash is the highest place, but not the top highest. Is very high, but it's written in the Torah, Ben Kteifav Shachen. In order to make the beauty of Beit HaMikdash, is a high mountain among mountains. And Tosfot said that the room 3 amot is 3 cubits. So in other words, he yishkav b'mikveh, he lay in a mikveh, and then he stands. So basically, if you go by the text itself,
Are they, just so I understand, are they saying the Temple Mount is not as high as the other mountains around it, or where the temple was built was not on the highest point of the Temple Mount?
No, the first one.
Okay, the first one.
And that's that it's beauty to see other mountains around him,
gotcha.
Cover him. But here the measurement of mikveh is 1 cubit length by 1 cubit width, by the height of 3 cubits, and the sages calculated the volume of the water of the ritual bath, and has to have a 40 se'ah. So from this place, the Ma'ayan Eitam, the water for the mikveh come to the gate of the water, and that's naturally the way of the water coming from the highest to the lowest. So that's any time it's a highest place more than the mikveh. So since the gate of the water was higher in 20 cubit above the floor of the courtyard, and the mikveh on the top of that was 3 cubit, it means that the water in the mikveh was 23 cubits above the floor of the courtyard, and it means that the Enei Tam was a minimum a little more than that height. 31b, והאיקה התקרה ואמה מעזיבה. Isn't there a cubit of the thickness of the ceiling over the gate, and a cubit of the thickness of the plaster ceiling of the mikveh floor, for the total of at least 23 cubits? So it means, Rashi tells us, של טיט וחול מגובל יחד להיות עם המים, נוחים שם לבד עומק החלל 3 אמות שנחשב. So basically it's not the 23 that Abaye said. So they said שערים בבית המקדש כיוון דשי שנינו במשהו אביד לי. So they said that the temple gate, since they use a marble, that's a very strong material, and they constructed them with minimal thickness, so it wasn't in the thickness of cubit. Right. So the aika ha'ech mashehu, but still you have a something that they constructed a minimum thickness of the ceiling. They still have kevan de lo havai amta lo chashiv la. Since the ceiling was not a whole cubit, he does not consider it in his calculation. Now, at the end of Mishnah, they said, Parsu sadin shel butz beino leben ha'am. They spread a sheet of linen between the high priest and the people in the idea that it has to be a modesty. So it's like a petition. Maishna shel butz. Why they use the fine line?
Linen here.
Linen versus the others. So the Gemara said, Kedamar Ravuna, that Ravuna said, later we study it in page 34b, כדי שיכיר שעבודת היום בבגדי בוץ, הכנה מכדי שיכיר שעבודת היום בבגדי בוץ. He need to recognize the fine linen garments versus the others. So he used the golden garments daily, and in order for him to recognize the difference, that's the reason they do that. So in other words, during the year round, the high priest used 8 garments. 4 of them were made out of gold, like the tzitz, the breastplate, the ephod, the me'ila. All the bells was made out of gold. Yom Kippurim, it's white. 4 fine linen for Yom Kippurim. Mishnah. Now we continue with the Seder Avodah. Pashat yarad v'taval alav v'nistapag. The Kohen removed the white garments that he was wearing, descended to the mikveh, immersed, and he ascended and dried himself with towel. So the question is, why need towel? What's the idea? What's the big chidush? Why they tell us stories that he have a towel to dry himself?
Well, I mean, the water could contain some some things in it that might, say wouldn't be perfectly clean when there was still some water on him before he put on the clothing. And I think the clothing held some sanctification, so he wanted to be as clean as possible before.
I will say this: the Mishnah Lamelech. It's a good point. The Mishnah Lamelech. It's a book. He asked that question, famous one. And basically, if you notice, the Hasidim, they have, some of them have the minhag not to use towel after going to the mikveh. They believe that the mikveh carries special sanctity, and they want that water to stay on the body. And Aruch HaShulchan have a discussion, because even the Hasidim have one issue over hair when they use for tefillin, because it's a problem when they have water, etc., etc. So to make long story short, they said that for the hair they dry the hair. So one version, the Mishnah Lamelech said, as you said, that maybe the water was not, since it was used, the mikveh was not totally clean.
Right.
Nowadays we have chlorines and things, right? They put, but the Aruch HaShulchan in the bottom line said that v'nistapag, it's not conditional. In other words, here in this case, he really used the towel to dry himself. Mainly, you may use that to say that something happened with the water, or for his he applied to his hair. Yes.
So when we go to a misveh, Rabbi, the water that they put in the misveh, they get it from...
It's a combination.
It's a river.
Rainwater.
It's a combination of rainwater, and the water that was coming with a special pipe that dry from another tub to the mikveh, and then you have basically water that's constantly moving.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, it was interesting, because I remember I was watching a shiur of Rabbi Kaplan up in Toronto, I think he was, and he said, he kind of made the point that said you can get in the shower for basically all day long, scrub yourself every part of your body inside out with soap and water, and come out and you're still not spiritually clean. He said, but then you can go dunk yourself in a mikveh full of dirty mikveh water and you come out spiritually clean. So
famous story about the Baal Shem Tov. Yes.
Why?
One of the decrees we just have to accept.
They
don
need to be close to the skin, and would the water create some kind of like intermediary if they weren't totally dry? Then, like, is there?
The idea of dry, we just said that Mishnah Lamelech said that either because it was used or because of the hair.
But her point, though, what she's making is, because remember when we studied about the pants that they wore, and it said that they shall be against the flesh, so therefore there shall be no separation between. So what she's saying is, if there was some water still on there, would that create some sort of separation between the clothing and the skin, the water in between?
And that
if you
might
didn't
be
dry
why
it off.
they need to dry it totally.
I think
unless they don't put it on until their body's dry, they just stand until the body.
Interesting, good point.
View no big day is zahav. You're all making an excellent point. So they're bringing 8 garments that the Kohen Gadol used all year round. Velavash, and he is wearing them. Vekidesh yadav veraglav. So he basically used that faucet to sanctify his hand and feet. View lo et hatamid, the bringing the daily offering. Kratzo meaning he slaughtered. Later the Gemara explained it. Umeirak acher shchita al yado. So another Kohen does it for him. So there's a 2 opinion in Rashi, 2 explanation. One is for him, the other one is followed him. Kibel et adam uzrako. He received in the sacred vessel, kli sharet, the blood, and he sprinkled it on the water.
Because that's the blood that had to be collected from the incision, right?
Yes, so you take it and you put it at the corner of northeast and southwest of the Mizbeach, the same as all the burnt offering. And then nichnas leaktir ktoret shel shachar. He entered the sanctuary to burn the morning incense, and ulehitiv et hanerot, to remove the ashes from the lamps, of the candle burn. Well, that was in the menorah, because that was again made daily. ולהקריב את הראש ואת האיברים. And to sanctify the head and the limbs of the sheep, the sacrifice of the daily offering. והחביתין ואת היין, and the griddle cake offering and the wine libation of the daily offering. קטורת של שחר הייתה קריבה. He said the morning incense was burned בין דם לאיברים, between receiving the sprinkling of the blood and the burning of the limbs, של בין הארבעים, for the afternoon, בין איברים לנסחים. So between the taking the limbs up to the water and the taking the limb, the bring to the altar, and then the pouring the libation that accompanying the offering. Now, אם היה כהן גדול זקן או איסטניס, מחמין לו חמים ומטילים לתוך הצונן כדי שתפיג צנעתם. So if the Kohen Gadol was an elderly person or fastidious, if he was fussy and it's too cold the water for him to dug, so Rashi explains, מבערב יום הכיפורים מטילים ביום הכיפורים לתוך הקק בניין בית טבילתו. So they take like a piece of metal and they burn it in a very high temperature before Yom Kippur. And then they throw it to the mikveh, and then it's warm, or a little bit warmer than ומטילים לתוך המצונן כדי שתפיג צנעתן. So basically the temperature will be better, so he will not have that problem to duck himself there. אמרו הרבנן כמי דרב פאפא. Now we're dealing with the first part of the Mishnah. This Mishnah that did not require the high priest to sanctify his hand and his feet twice with the first ducking the mikveh, the lo Rabbi Meir, because we're going to study Mitzvah in page 34b, the opinion of Rabbi Meir that the Kohen Gadol sanctified his hand and his toes after he take off his clothing. Opposite the sage's opinion that first he sanctified his hands and his toes and then he take off his clothing. The Rabbi Meir, so in other words, the procedure here they talk about, how do you call it, dual process, right? How they do it. So the Rabbi Meir, if you tell me that this Mishnah match the opinion of Rabbi Meir, you can challenge that Kevan de Amar Trei Kiddushay, because he said that there has to be 2 times sanctification of hand and the toes at the time of changing garment. Al visha avid lehu, because this wearing the high priest does it before and after, and that's the reason that the high priest did not sanctify his hand and his toes after he take off his old garments, because even the first one was the purpose of wearing it. Hachaname also, when he's wearing the golden garments first time, le'avid trei kiddushay alevisha, he need to sanctify twice his hand and toes in order to wear the golden garments. First, he needs to do it when he take his regular daily garments before he wear the golden one. And the second one, after he's already wearing the golden garments, after he's wearing the golden garment. And the Mishnah, we don't mention only sanctification of hand and feet one time after he's wearing the golden garments. It means that the Mishnah is not according to Rabbi Meir. Amar lu Rav Papa. Rav Papa rejected the point of view. And he said, Bein lerabanan, bein lerabi Meir, chad apshita de bigdei kodesh, vechad alvisha. He said, both regardless of Rabbanan or Rabbi Meir. One, it's applied to take off the garments, and one, it's to wear the sacred garments. So therefore, Rabbi Meir agreed that when the high priest wore these sacred garments first time during the Day of Atonement, he need only one sanctification because he's wearing a sacred garment. Vehacha, in the following Mishnah, page 34b, that Rabbi Meir hold that the high priest sanctified his hand and leg after taking off his garment. It's not because, according to his view, the sanctification come because of his wearing the garment, but it's because that it's a part of taking off, which means that the difference is if you have to do it before it or after it. Behaka mifligate. This is the disputation between Rabbi Meir and the sages in regards to this specific pasuk line in Leviticus chapter 16, 23-24. It's a long pasuk. They said upashat, verachatz, and then verachatz, velavash. That it's the process. We need to know exactly how the Kohen Gadol needs to do it properly. Rabbi Meir savar makish pshita lelevisha. Rabbi Meir juxtapose taking off and putting on of the sacred garments. And he said, mach levisha lovesh ve'achar kach mekadesh. The same way as he's wearing, the high priest wearing the sacred garments, and then he sanctified his hand and his toes. Pshita poshet ve'achar kach mekadesh. The same way as taking off, he needs to do it in that procedure, which means that the sanctification of hands and toes, it was for the purpose of taking the garments, and you do it after you're taking it off the garment according to Rabbi Meir and not before. V'Rabbanan Savri, the sages disagree with him and hold makish pshita levisha ma levisha kshu lavush mekadesh av pshita kshu lavush mekadesh. They say the opposite. They juxtapose taking off to put it on. They said the same way to do it. He sanctified hand and toes when it's still on here, the garments. The same way he's taking off the time that he's sanctified his hands and toes in order to take it off. So it means, Amru le Rabbanan le Rabbi Papa, we matzit amar, you tell me that according to Rabbi you need to do only one time sanctification because you're wearing a new garment, and therefore the first time that the high priest wearing this sacred garment for the Day of Atonement, he needs only one sanctification and not two. Ve'atanya, we have another braita that describe the way that they wearing the garments, and they said the first time in Yom Kippur, and they said parsu sadin shel butz beino levein ha'am. They spread a sheet of fine linen between the Kohen Gadol and the people. Remember we studied it. Pashat v'yarad v'taval. The Kohen Gadol take off his garment and he dug himself in a mikveh. Alav and istapag. He ascended and dried himself. We just discussed it. Heviu lo bigdei zahav. They bring him a golden garment. Velavash v'kidesh yadav v'raglav. And he is wearing the garment, and then he sanctified his hand and toes. So it means that's applied. Rashi said, and Ritva said, that's the first immersing himself for the day. Rabbi Meir disagreed, and he said that's not the order they did it. He said pashat v'kidesh yadav v'raglav. First he take off his garment, and then he sanctified his hand and his toes. Ve'yarad v'taval. He went to the mikveh and he dug himself. Alav and istapag, and then he ascended and he has dried out. Heviu lo bigdei zahav v'lavash v'kidesh otam yadav v'raglav. So then, when they brought him a golden garment, he sanctified his hands and toes second time. So it means, according to Rabbi Meir, the high priest need to have two sanctification, both when he's wearing the golden garments first time, and according to the students of Rav Papa, that he needs, according to that view of Rabbi Meir, two sanctification for for the wearing the garment, and not according to Rav Papa that hold that the sanctification one has to carry because he's wearing it, and the second one is because he taken it off according to Rabbi Meir. Amar lehu, Rav Papa respond to his good morning. Itanya, if you learn the Braita in that way, which means if they said clearly in the Braita that Meir hold that even wearing first time these golden garments during the Day of Atonement, you need to have 2 sanctification. Tanya, that's what's written in a Braita, and I have to accept that. So otherwise, you have a hard time to understand this Mishnah. So the Gemarrah challenged that and said, granted, according to the approach of Rabbi Meir, that is how you find the possibility of Asara Kiddushim, 32a, Asara Kiddushim, which means 10 sanctification. Rashi explains Lechamesh Tvilot, which means that you have here 5 sets of ducking in the water, and each time that the Kohen Gadol duck himself, he need to do 2 times sanctification of hand and toes. So it's a lot, right? Each time 2 times, each time 2 times, each time 2 times. So you have basically 5 immersion and 10 sanctification.
That's where the hand washing comes.
Hand and the
So why don't
toes.
they wash the feet?
What?
Why don't they wash the feet today?
And today, because you don't have those issues with number one, you don't go to the Holy of Holies, and number two, we explained yesterday that part of that was the issue that in ancient time when they urinate, it was they go barefoots and sparks was coming out, and then it create lack of purifications. So you need to sanctify both. Ela le Rabbanan. But according to Rabbanan that hold that the Kohen Gadol did not sanctify his hand and feet only 1 time because he wear the sacred garments, it means that the first time the Kohen Gadol duck himself, he sanctified his hand and toes only 1 time, and therefore Tish'a Havu. So it's not 10, it's 9. So we explain in the Mishnah in page 30 that the Kohen Gadol ducked himself 5 times and sanctified himself 10 times during Yom Kippur, according to Rabbi Meir that hold that the first time he ducked himself, he sanctified his hand and toes twice, which means that we have 10 sanctification for the 5 ducking of water. That's what Rashi said. But Rashi explained that according to the sages that hold that he does only 1 sanctification at the first time, we have only 9 sanctification, 1 at the first time, and then 2 in each and every other 4. So how you have by the sages 10 sanctification? Amrei lach Rabbanan, the sages who disagree with Rabbi Meir hold Kiddusha Batra, the last sanctification, the 10th one, Ki Pashit Bigdei Kodesh, when he takes off his garments at the end of the day after he completed the work of Yom Kippur, Velavish Bigdei Chol, and he's now wearing a daily regular mundane garments, Avid Lehatam. So at that time, when he made this sanctification, because according to the sages he had to have this process, because if you think of it, according to Rabbi Meir, the Kohen Gadol did not sanctify his hand and toes totally when he take off his garments, when he take off his sacred garments in order to wear a daily garments, he doesn't need to have this sanctification. That's what Rabbi Meir holds, because he said that the 2 sanctification is for the wearing of the garment, and if you wear a regular garments, Rashi explains, you don't need that. But the Rashash and Sfat Emet also said that he did it when he completed the daily walk. He did sanctification of hand and toes, and then the big question is what's exactly the problem here? So they said they bring a braita that based on this halacha of 5 time ducking in the water and 10 sanctification. That's the less subject for today. Tanu Rabbanan. It's written in the Torah after the Kohen Gadol completed all the works that he did in a regular white garment, which Yom Kippur white garment, which is putting the incense, spraying the blood of the bull, etc., and bringing the scapegoat. All of that is in Leviticus chapter 16. Aaron el Ohel Moed. So then he entered the tent of meeting. So what is that? Lama uba. What's the purpose? We have him. What did he do in the tent of meeting? So in a simple way, he is there in order to take off his garments. But you cannot go in the literal sense of that pasuk. That's basically the Tosfot Rosh said, and Tosfot Yeshanim and Ritva. It's very hard to say that that's the purpose, because that's not part of avodah. That's not part of the ritual needed there. So and why you need to go lifnei velifnim? So you have to say that when the pasuk said v'nicham sham, when he put it there, it's after he wear this special white garment for the Day of Atonement, so he cannot use those garments for any future Yom Kippurim. So they said, Lama uba, eno ba ela lotzi et hakaf v'et hamachta. He may enter there to take out the large spoon and the pan that he put in the Holy of Holies after he completed the putting the incense, v'chol parasha, and all the process of walking on Yom Kippur, kulan ne'emra ala seder. All the works, it's written in the order that they are doing. Chutz mi pasuk ze, excluding for that pasuk. So even it said as part of the work that they do in a white garment, the type of work involved in it, which is taking out this part, kaf, machta, the pen itself, it happens much later. Which is, let's just review for a second what exactly involved with avoda in Yom Kippur. First stage is he takes the daily offering and the morning incense, and part of the additional, the musaf offering, and he's wearing golden garments. That's the first part. The second one, it's a specific work that involves with Yom Kippurim, which is the bull and the sa'ir chatat, the sin offering, that he combined with that part of putting the blood and putting the incense in the Holy of Holies. And the last one, when he's wearing a white garment, is the scenting the scapegoat. Then the third part is taking the offering of the ram of the high priest and the ram of the people, and that one he's wearing a golden garment. And then the fourth one, he changing to white garment, which is taking the plate and the pan. The plate is the large spoon and the pan outside of the Holy of Holies. He's wearing white garment. And then again he changed to golden garment, which is an addition offering and the daily offering of the afternoon, and putting the incense of all the rest on the golden altar, which was in a sanctuary, and then lamp, the candle burn. So all of that is a golden garment. So even the offering of his ram and the ram of the people preceding to taking off the plates, the pasuk put it earlier. The reason for that we explain later, but that's basically the process of the avodah. So they said here, my tama, why we need to say that taking out the large spoon and the plate from the Holy of Holies was not in the order of the psukim, which means that you have a type of work, which is the ram and the ram of the people with the golden garments, that's basically separated with the white garments and taking out these plates. Even if you follow strictly the sentence in the Torah, the pasuk, you will have first the idea of entering of Aharon to the tent of meeting in order to pull out the plates and the large spoon, And that happened after he put the blood of the bull and the sa'ir that was burned, and sending out the Kohen for the scapegoat. That's specifically for Yom Kippurim, and it's made with the white garment. So the Gemara explained it, and it said, Amar Rav Chizda Gmirei. We have a tradition, it's called Halacha LeMoshe MiSinai, it's a tradition received since the time of Moses in Sinai, as follows. He said, Chamesh Tvilot v'asara Kiddushin Tovel Kohen Gadol u'mekadesh bo bayom. As we said earlier, we have the tradition that 5 immersions and 10 sanctifications, the high priest immersed and sanctified his hand and feet respectfully on Yom Kippurim. Ve'ikes sidran, if you tell me that it has to be exactly the way that the pasuk mentioned, lo mashkarat lo ela shalosh tvilot v'shisha kiddushin. If you make the account of the process, you end up by having 3 times ducking the water and 6 sanctification. So, but in conclusion, we have 5 and 10, which means you have to say that he left the pan and the large spoon in the Holy of Holies, and he walked out wearing the golden garment, and for that purpose he ducked himself and sanctified himself 2 times, bringing the ram of his and the people, and then he ducked himself again, and he do it 2 times and wore the white garment, and then he entered the Holy of Holies in order to pull out the pan and the large spoon. So it means that you have in addition 2 times that he ducked himself and another 4 sanctifications. So you see here how it's matched the way we understand, and now we understand also why it's not exactly the order that you see literally in the text. Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah 201. We speak about immersion, about tefillah. To achieve purification in a ritual bath or a spring, an individual must completely submerge his body all at once. One of the things in Tevilah people must understand that you need to have if it's a women Tevilah, for example, balanit, someone who's watching over them, because she watched to make sure that they do it properly, which is one of the conditions is to immerse themselves in the whole body, a total immersion at one time. Beside of other issues such as, especially for people who are not familiar, chatzitza, partition, can be with nail, can be with wearing watch, etc., etc. It's all kind of issues of chatzitzot. The measure of the water in which this can be accomplished is 1 cubit by 1 cubit by 3 cubits of water, but we explained many times that that's basically the minimum. The way that we follow is the way the Gemarrah tells us, that is the 40 se'ah. That's the measure of average person can stand. That's the proper size of the mikveh.
The fingernails they always have to clean before.
Clean. That's part of the requirement. Parso sadin shel butz. That's the Rambam, Hilchot Avodat Yom Kippurim, chapter 4. They said before the daily offering was slaughtered, a linen sheet was spread between the high priest and the people. The reason that was specifically a linen was so that the Kohen Gadol will be aware that he is to perform the Yom Kippur service wearing linen garments. And then he was required to immerse whenever he changed his garment, which is a fascinating fact that so many times he need to immerse himself. Right. And then it was the Shchitat Atamid. On Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol slaughters the daily offering by cutting the majority of each of the 2 organs, the white pipe and the gullet, and another person completes the slaughtering. That's Rashi said it's 2 versions, one for him and one after him, if you remember. The Kohen Gadol then receives the blood in the vessel and sprinkle it on the altar. And we also explained what happened if he was a fastidious man, if he was a little fussy. So they said that if he was old or sick, etc., they heated up chunks of iron in the fire before Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur Eve, and the next day put them in the ritual bed to temper the water's chill. Or the other option, the Rambam said in Hilchot Avodat Yom Kippurim, chapter 2, that they will mix hot water into the cold water of the ritual bath. I must tell you that the Chebiner Rav in Yerushalayim is a famous story. It was a genius rabbi by the name of Chebiner Rav who studied quoted many times my wife's grandfather, Rav Meshulam Rata. So anyway, the story goes that one Shabbos he went to the mikveh in Yerushalayim, and someone saw him. He put his feet, start going down on stairs, and he realized that it's warm. So he stepped up, dressed, and left. He didn't even duck himself. Anyway, Siyum Avodat Hayom, the Rambam said in Chot Avodat Yom HaKippurim, chapter 2, the Kohen Gadol burns the incense in the afternoon, as is the practice every day, and removes the ashes from the lamps. He then sanctifies his hand and feet, removes the golden garments, and don ordinary clothes before leaving the Beit HaMikdash.
Yetzahave